So I think that's actually one of the biggest disagreement points. Do you know Elon?
Levy?
He was a spokesman for
Elon Levy?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think for like 6 days he was you're like a spokesman, and then stuff happened.
Yeah.
I remember arguing with him a lot about this. I don't know if this is a common talking point in Israel still, like the seven fronts that you guys face. Is that said a lot? The seven fronts. He would say this all the time.
I don't know.
Um,
I'm not a spokesperson, so I don't. I
sure,
wouldn't
yeah,
say seven fronts, but it's you could see it as also one front that's multi, coming from one theater of war in a sense. But it's
sure.
still it was
So
still facing an existential threat. That's my main point. It doesn't matter how many fronts there are.
yeah, I understand. So one of the biggest disagreements that I have with modern Israelis is I feel like I hear a lot of trauma, especially kind of from, especially for people that lived through the Second Intifada, and then a lot of it I feel is inherited, but I think is lacking increasingly more justification. I think one of the biggest, in my feelings, one of the biggest kind of mistakes that a lot of like far right neo-Nazi anti-Semitic people make is this concept that Jews have such a great propaganda machine, or they do Hasbara so well, or they control the Western media. And I feel like more what happened is, we say Gen X and the baby boomers, that in the older generations, Israel, for whatever you think about it, is an inspiring story. Country shows up, ragtag group of people want to go, make some land in a place that, despite being God's holy land, is kind of shitty land. There's not much to do. They got to cultivate it. There's a whole bunch of stuff they got to bring in water from the north. There's a whole bunch of work that has to go to making Israel inhabitable. And they do all this, and then they fight these wars largely on their own for the first like two or three of them, up through at least 67, if not really 73, is when the U.S. is like really a big backer. That Israel has to do all this work to finally get support from the West. And the story is genuinely an inspiring story. It looks like a Western democracy, Western style democracy for, and at least initially, people that look like us and everything. Like, okay, cool. That story held, and it was sold, not even sold. It just naturally plays out as a good story. And it's like a natural, point that the Western world, the first world, aligns on against the second world, against the Soviets, everything else. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, after the Soviet Union goes away, after Israel is successful in making peace with parts of the Arab world. I think that Israel carries with it this concept that they're still kind of like stuck in this world of existential threats constantly, but nobody in the West from the younger generations sees it anymore. For people that are maybe, 45, 50 years older, they still see Israel as kind of this underdog that fought its way to survival. But for people my age and younger, when they think of Israel in the West, it's just like, oh, those are the people that bomb Palestinians all the time. And that's it. And I think that I think there's more truth to that than that Israel is facing a constant existential threat. But regardless of where the truth is, I think Israel it behooves Israel to understand that as much as Israel might say, oh my God, we're fighting seven fronts, or we're fighting all the existential threat. In the early days of the Yom Kippur War, I think it was Moshe Dayan,
True.
because Golda Meir, I think, was still there for 73, right?
Yep.
What was they
It was
what
Moshe
was it
Dayan
like?
who said it was the fall of the third temple. Is
Yeah, the
that what
third
you're
temple has
referring?
fallen. Yeah, we have to start fucking nuking motherfuckers, okay? Because this shit is over. Um, to go from that to Netanyahu is, I don't even want to say the luckiest man in the world. To go from that to Nasrallah is dead. Ishmael Haniyeh, every single Hamas leader is dead, no matter where they are, whether they're in Syria, whether they're in Qatar. Every single apparently device with a fucking battery in it in southern Lebanon is exploding, in Hezbollah hands. The Houthis are getting bombed by fucking everybody to basically knock down every single enemy in the region,
But
right?
but that's after
It,
a successful war. You skipped the first year, which is kind of important, right?
sure, I know, but I'm just saying that like Israel, Israel basically beat up like everybody. Whether it was like for Iran to get bombed, like it's hard to look at that and go, "Wow, Israel is this underdog that's getting super screwed up in the Middle East, and they might be destroyed at any time." Especially when for the first time, I think it's meaningful when Iran was going to bomb, and did attempt to bomb it, and did, I think, in one or two areas, a couple of missiles fell, bomb Israel. You get other states, like Jordan, intercepting missiles and helping. That feeling to me isn't like, and maybe it's easier for me to say in the West, but that's not like the existential dread feeling I don't think Israel can sell that to the rest of the world anymore. Something has to change there because it doesn't look like it's a fair fight, right? It looks like Israel
Yeah.
kind of beat the shit out of everybody.
So
You know,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
trying.
go ahead.
I'm not going to try to
Mhm,
sell anything to the rest of the world. I'm gonna try to sell it to
mhm.
you, right? You
Sure.
know. So here's the thing. We
Mhm,
know both what strategic depth means, and when you have, it's true that once proper war broke up, I guess you could say, broke out,
mhm.
Israel kind of dominated it, especially since the successful moves against Hezbollah. Right, that's kind of what
For sure.
tipped the balance of the war, I guess you could say. And then it, of course, allowed the war with Iran and etc. But if you were to really think about that, the strategy could be, if I were an anti-Israeli Arab, the strategy would not be to go to a long and serious war. The strategy would be to surprise attack Israel and basically get to the centers of power, essentially, to the maybe military bases or to the air force bases and
Yeah.
take them out. And it's really not that difficult. You could be there within hours, especially. I guess the mistake, the only reason that it didn't happen was that Hamas was so afraid of penetration by the Israeli intelligence that it did not share or coordinate with its friends. Imagine if they were all to attack together. It's not really that outlandish to say that despite of all of Israel's later successes in the war, you could just, get a bunch of terrorists into the Knesset and into the police stations and into the air bases and, pull out of there whoever that you need to pull out by his hair, maybe lynch him a little bit, but although you don't have to really. And the state as a kind of organized entity kind of collapses, right? Or, yeah. So in that sense, I do think that it's fair to say that there was an existential threat, and I also think it's kind of obvious that there was. Yeah. So
May I add something? Yeah, for the army, for like 8 hours was not even activated. We can say that whatever was it, the Air Force or whatever it was, yeah, and there were policemen who were in the Nova, where it was the party itself, and people who are commanders who are coming from their homes and not in duty and trying to save us. And yeah.
And I should also add, Destiny, that if you read Mohammed Deif's declaration, Mohammed Deif is the the head of the military wing of Hamas in Gaza.
Who was killed?
Was, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, was. Yeah. So when you read his statement on the outbreak of Tufan al-Aqsa, right, the operation, 7th of October, it's basically a call for all of the surrounding affiliated factions, let's say, to join in because now is the chance. And that's what they were probably aiming for. I mean, that's what they were hoping for, right? And it's not something that could not have happened. So I just wanted to put that on the table when you talk about, minimizing a threat and saying how strong Israel is. I agree with you. And I'm actually, of course, quite pleased with that. And that's a great achievement by the Israeli intelligence and army. But at the same time, it could have ended way differently. And when you have a country as small as Israel, then really a surprise attack could be all that it takes. So that's just what I wanted to say about that.
So I do agree, and I think it's a great credit to the Palestinians, the Arabs that live in Israel and in the West Bank, that when the attacks happened, there wasn't. I think that it feels like there was this hope from Hamas that not only would Hezbollah invade, there'd be like this massive third intifada, this uprising, because you have there's like 2 million Arab Palestinians that live in Israel proper that could have been a part of whatever, some third intifada, and it didn't happen. And I think that that's a credit, and I think it shows an improvement in the region of kind of like where people's minds are. I think that the thing that you have to be careful of when you speak like this, like Arab is a small, or not Arab, Israel is a small nation. It could be taken over by terrorist threats at any point. Is that feels like it can be an infinite justification for infinite conflict. Like we can never make peace with these people because if they militarize and come kill us, like it's all over. Like that, yeah, that just feels like an infinite justification for always having a protracted conflict.
Well,
like what is the off ramp, I guess? Or like, what do you see then as being like,
I don't know.
Well, now,
I just see a problem, but you're right that it's a problem, that it's a justification for an endless conflict, but it also it is what it is in a sense, right? So I don't know. I mean, you say, I don't have really a lot of what to respond to that, because it was kind of like an idealistic argument and not like a realistic one. I mean, your argument was basically, I don't like it.
Well, the realistic argument, I think, is that I would say that right now on its current path, I think Israel is on a path to its own destruction, and it will come in the course of thinking arrogantly that it can forever forego figuring out a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and that will at some point boil over into a massive, that if the situation was a bit different in the surrounding states, that the next attack might find more harmony with surrounding Arabs, that does lead into a huge attack, and then it's like, now everything is completely over. Whereas if somehow there was a solution between Palestinians and Israelis that involved some kind of two-state thing, or whatever the final agreement is, the whole region looks significantly different. And now, like Iran's biggest fear, the biggest threat to people like Iran are a united Israel, a united everybody to the south, all the Gulf states, everything, because now they're like, they have no entry point at all into anything, and so much of the Arab world's grievances against Israel would kind of vanish if that problem got solved. But just keeping that open forever, it's just like it's like a huge hole in the bottom of a boat that water's like always coming in on, and at some point, if it doesn't get solved and it goes on forever, I think that that's only bad for Israel. I don't think that ever magically gets better. The only magic that will happen is Israel blowing up. That's what I feel.
But that kind of assumes that a potential settlement would lead to peace, which is not what history teaches us, I would say, regarding.
Well, I mean,
even
if I assume it's 50-50, which we can say that, I think that like the status quo, I would feel is like a 95% Israel's going to get blown up. Whereas like, even if you have to flip a coin on peace, like at least there's some chance of some larger arrangement there that, opens the world for everybody to kind of exist in some way. Yeah.
Okay. So there were 2 points that were opened here, or 2 directions. And I would like to ask Moshe what he would like us to dive into, right?
Okay.
So there were 2 points of disagreements between us that we could explore. The first was that a path basically that going around the Palestinians to the Arab nations was a mistake, right? We've covered this before, but we didn't really address it in any length.
Sure.
And the other one,
I would just say, I think just on that real quick, I think it was good in the beginning, but the Palestinian issue has to be dealt with eventually. I wouldn't say it was a mistake in the beginning. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So maybe we do not disagree as much as we might think. Is it okay if I try to push you a bit on that?